I'm back with another podcast to help you notice ADHD in young girls. And today I'm talking with Dana Baker Williams. She has specialized over the years in ADHD and anxiety. And she told me she particularly likes educating parents because they make such a huge difference in their daughter's life. So, welcome, Dana.
Thank you.
The first question, Dana, is why did you decide to focus on anxiety and ADHD?
Honestly, it was because my daughter went through the cracks. Nobody saw anything except me when she was little. And we had a difficult home life because some people were telling me I was coddling her. There was nothing wrong. Teachers said she was great, but she wasn't. And I knew that. So once I got her tested, it turned out she has ADHD, working memory, processing issues, anxiety, all the things.
How old was she when you got her diagnosed?
I think she was 11 or 12 even.
So, were you noticing anxiety all
Oh, yeah.
along? Anxiety started even when she was 6 and 7.
Yes, transitions were really hard for her. She'd shut down at homework time, but she was also a perfectionist. And then if she was put on the spot, it was, I don't know. So I could see that something was bothering her. But the transitions, the change in something. So if she thought she was going to gymnastics after school and I pick her up and she's not, oh, it was a major meltdown. So that's what clued me in on the
Well, I would
anxiety.
think of that as anxiety because I think I associate that real difficulty with transitions more with autism
No, so it's very much anxiety and also ADHD.
to have
Yeah.
trouble with transitions.
I think the reason she would melt down, or anybody would, is because she needed that processing time to get her head around the fact that she wasn't doing what she thought she was doing. And the anxiety comes out when you don't know. So if she was uncertain or something was new or uncertain, that raises a lot of
Yeah.
anxiety.
She got apprehensive about her performance because it was different than what she had prepared for. Is that
Yes.
what you're saying?
Yes, she would, and some of it was performance, but mostly it was just routines, right? So I want to know what I'm doing next. And when that's taken away from me, that's scary.
Oh, so the unknowing
Mhm.
provokes the anxiety.
Yeah.
In what other ways would a parent be noticing anxiety showing up in a young girl? Because it's discouraging for me because I had thought that if we get these girls early, it'll be before they develop some of these co-occurring problems.
Well, and for some, the ADHD is the main problem and it takes care of the anxiety.
Uh-huh.
But some of the things that, again, really big clue in is if they have stomach aches or headaches or don't want to go to school.
Somatic complaints,
Complaints.
you can't put your finger on because
Because they're saying it's real,
the
but they go to the
timing.
doctor, there's nothing wrong with them. So I have my clients lay down each time, write down what came before the meltdown or the stomach ache. And often it is something like gym class that they don't want to go to, but they don't know how to tell you that. And they don't know how to tell you that they're anxious. They're just feeling all these feelings. So they don't know that it's in there. They think it is a real stomach ache. It is a real stomach ache. It's just caused by something by the brain instead of by a problem in your stomach.
And before you just explained that, I was thinking that they were consciously aware they didn't want to go to school because they didn't want to go to gym and they were pretending they had a
Mhm.
stomach ache. But you're saying the anxiety gave them the stomach ache.
Yeah,
It was a real thing.
it is a real thing. The headache, the stomach ache, they're real. They're
Uh-huh.
just caused by the anxiety. And sometimes as the kids get older, they can. I used the gym class because I had a 12-year-old girl, loved soccer, she was a client, but she wouldn't go sometimes. And she would just stand in a shower and she wouldn't go. And I asked the mom why. And she said, I don't know. So I was asking the girl, and I'm like, what's hard about that for you when you love soccer? What's that hard part? And she was like, gym, changing in front of other people. I'm like, okay, that we can solve. We can work on that. But if you don't know and you don't have that issue, then you don't think about it.
When you were saying about what's the hard part, that's a really good question for parents to ask their children. Instead of saying, are you fine or is everything okay? To ask it. Because if you're anxious and you're trying to please, you always want to give that answer that I'm fine.
I'm
But to
fine.
ask, what was hard about this, or what do you think is going on that makes you not want to
Yeah,
go?
what can I do to help you? It's true. I use that all the time. And I tell parents all the time because it is such a great phrase. Instead of trying to guess, because another kid turned out what bothered them was sensory issues, but the mom doesn't have sensory issues. So she didn't think to ask that question.
Yeah. So, what's hard about this for you? I'm just curious. I want to
Yes.
help you, but I need to know how to help you.
Yes, exactly. And that's true for teachers too. If they're seeing these signs and they're in class, ask the question because a lot of times they'll be able to tell you that, even though they can't tell you that they're anxious.
Yes. And to get away from, are you okay? Because females are so cultured,
Yeah.
inculcate. I don't know what the word is, but we're brought up
Yeah.
to always say things are fine.
Shows
Yeah.
up so differently in girls because
Uh-huh.
of that.
Yes. Right.
And we are trained, quote unquote, to behave, be good, be quieter, be polite. So you do that in school for all those hours, and nobody sees that there's a problem. And then you go home and you vomit all your emotions all over your mom or dad because you've held it together all day.
And you're exhausted. And
You're
so
exhausted.
your ability to control yourself is gone, but
Mhm.
also it's a relief.
Yes, it's a relief. And they need a moment to download all of that and not go right into how was school and school conversation because they've done that all 8 hours. They need autonomy, they need choice.
If an adult thinks of how they feel from coming home from a day from work,
Right.
I
Yeah.
think if right away they're expected to do more work,
Yes.
it'd be very the same, that you'd feel
Oh, yeah.
this is unfair.
My clients that are adults, I say, take a 15-minute commute, even if you don't have one, before you leave work and get home or before you open the door in your home.
So, one thing I've always been told to watch for with children who use bad language about themselves, I'm so
Mm,
stupid. Does that show up in the anxiety too?
absolutely. And I think it shows up in both the anxiety and in ADHD because they are getting negative feedback all the time. And the
Kind of
anxiety is, I want to be good. I want to do everything right. So when they don't, their inner critic starts at a really young age. Oh, you're so stupid. I'm an idiot. How did I forget that? Why does it take me time to adjust these things? And the anxiety makes them want to be perfect.
They
They're
have
not.
this false belief, I think, that if I'm perfect, no escape
Yes.
all this criticism.
All this criticism and I'll change because they're feeling life is hard for me right now. And why is it so hard? I must be stupid because it's not so hard for my brother or sister.
Huh.
You get that comparison going at all the different ages is difficult because they are telling themselves that they always do it wrong. People make mistakes, but instead of
Right.
slamming yourself, if you can talk
I've
nicely to
also heard
yourself,
that people with ADD, we don't often know that it's different for other people.
right?
So we're not always aware.
Mm.
We're aware that we feel different, but we don't know why. We're not that aware that it's not the same for other people.
And that's hard.
Uh-huh.
That's tough as a kid. And then comes in, or the parents, right? Who doesn't yell at their kids once in a while or just lose it because they've had a bad day? And
Right.
how could you forget this again? Shame. So, what they're afraid of, they being the kids, is shame. That's what they feel. They feel ashamed of themselves sometimes.
So if a mother notices her daughter's trying to be perfect, and this is where it took me back, but I'd read that some parents love having a perfect daughter.
Wow.
You've got
Right.
this perfect daughter, you can be proud of her. And so to get the parents to even wake up and say, maybe being perfect is harmful for her mental health.
Perfectionism is often caused by anxiety for any of us. Need to do everything right, that need to not be embarrassed because you're in a group setting and you get something wrong. You're in your kindergarten class and you can't read, but they can. All those things. That makes you want to be better and
The
hating.
parent role playing how they make mistakes and accept themselves making mistakes. What
Yes.
are some of your strategies you'd provide a parent if they get concerned that their daughter is driven by perfectionism?
I think what I tell them is to model and live your life out loud. And that's important with the anxiety. It's also important with ADHD. It's good to speak as you're doing things. I process out loud. That helps my daughter or someone else see and hear that I just made a mistake. And, oh,
Yeah.
what could I do differently?
Yes.
Or learning the phrase, teaching your child, sometimes good is good enough. You don't need to get an A plus. When they come home with a minus or a B plus, don't ask, oh, what'd you do wrong? Or, oh, why isn't that, how'd you miss the A?
Yeah.
I also think one of the things I talk to my clients about is routines, keeping things in order, telling your kids what you're going to be doing that day, what their next step is, writing things down, having a calendar in the kitchen or something.
So the more clarity you can
The
give them
more,
to the day, the more structure.
because the
It
structure,
makes them feel safe.
it takes that fear away because they know what they're supposed to do next because they're being told. And if they're left with this hole and they're supposed to figure it out, that's scary because what if they do the wrong thing and they get yelled at? So, yeah, so processing out loud, making something normal, and also being okay and happy for them that they have tried. Like, it's not the end result, it's that they're learning and trying.
Yes.
That's so important.
And that's what the whole thing is in yoga, is it's a practice, and to give people that mentality that we're just all trying to improve.
Yeah, there is no end product. There's no perfection. Is it like perfect doesn't exist? So
Right.
let's not get our kids chasing something that isn't real.
What should parents be looking for to further evaluate whether anxiety is part of this picture?
Yeah, I think noticing patterns is important.
What kind of patterns are you talking?
Are they able to keep the same friends? Do they have friends? Do they have one friend or a group of friends? Those things can tell you something. If my daughter, just to go back to her, when she was little, 7 or whatever, she wanted play dates, but she would come out and actually tell me, I don't want a big group. I like one-on-one. I don't like 3, that can be hard. I like smaller. So, 4 is fine, 1 is fine. But she knew that that social anxiety had already kicked in. She's feeling hurt if her best friend changes, like looking for that too. If the friends change, that could be a sign that she's either anxious, she has ADHD. If she's going, nobody likes me, avoiding birthday parties and things that she'd normally like, because then you can hone in on that. And then you can talk to the teacher. What is she like at school? How does she handle this? What does her recess look like? Because sometimes anxiety will come up at school and you think it's school-based when it's friends-based or sports-based at recess or any of those things. Now, if she's having problems with that type of thing and having a story, oh, she hasn't texted me back if she has a phone at 7, or she hasn't called me back, so she must hate me. Nobody likes me. I'm not
Right.
invited to everything.
Yes.
So then parents have to find a way to work with them on separating the facts from the story in her head. They're not always the same. Just because your head tells you it's this doesn't mean it is. So trying to teach them to be more flexible in their thinking, because with ADHD, you often are not flexible in your thinking and you're not a maybe, you're black and white, and you can be catastrophizing. And then some kids with ADHD or anxiety, they've got much heightened rejection sensitivity.
Right.
Put on your shoes faster will be, oh my
Yeah.
God, you're mad at me and crying.
And so if your daughter's making a mountain out of a molehill, instead of belittling it, that's the time to go in and say, "Well, help me understand what's going on here."
You want
Because
to,
you're picking up on some clues which just doesn't seem like it would be a usual reaction.
and I think that's hard too, because as a parent, especially a first time parent, and you have a 7-year-old who's
Yeah.
melting down or a 5-year-old, you're like, I don't know if that's normal or not.
How can parents know when it's within the normal range and when it's to a point where they're saying her anxiety is more
Is
than
typical.
appropriate? We should be thinking of some interventions.
One phrase that I use a lot is when her world is getting smaller. So less friends, less activities, less energy, more needing reassurance. So a
Uh-huh.
constant need. Do you love me? Did I do this well? Am I great at this? Also,
More
something,
seeking more reassurance,
right.
constant. need
and
for
constant
reassurance.
reassurance.
We're trying to stick close to the parents too, less exploratory behavior, reaching out into the world, but
Hanging
becoming
on to mom,
a home
right?
body.
And but I really think if her world is shrinking and it's
Mhm.
getting in the way of her living a good life, a fun childhood,
Yes.
then that's time to take a look at that and talk to a doctor and hire a coach so you can learn what improves your parenting for a child who is uniquely wired, because there are better ways to parent them, because the neurotypical child doesn't react the same way to a child with ADHD or anxiety. So it's a new communication pattern that you can learn.
When we learn about things for ADHD, we often say that what's good for people with ADD are good for people that don't have ADHD too.
Yes,
And so I'm
absolutely. You're
thinking
not,
these interventions are good for all children
yeah,
when the child has AD or anxiety.
what I teach is great for any parent. Every parent would be
Yes.
better off. That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So another parent coach I talked to was big on connection before correction.
Correction.
How would you put that into place, into action?
So I would say, let's say your child is not wanting to do their homework and either melting down or angry, because anxiety can show up as anger as well, irritability. I think then instead of jumping to, you just have to do it, which of course is a lot of our first
Yeah.
instinct as a parent, to let's get a snack together. Let's move for a few minutes, have some time together before we start the homework. So if homework's always a battle, do that first.
Uh-huh.
Think about, why is this happening? Because it's not that it's on purpose. And if you can figure out the why by communicating with them and holding them and co-regulating, because they will pick up on your energy, that's way better than coming up with a punishment or something, which doesn't really work and certainly doesn't teach them anything.
When you talk about it and you remove yourself from the situation, it makes so much sense for the parent not to be shouting and getting upset. When
But in
you
the moment,
envision this picture of the calm mother just interacting and saying, Susie, let's stop the homework for a while and go for a walk.
yeah,
Come back and look at it in 10 minutes.
hard to
That
do.
it's hard to do in the moment, but the awareness that this is the thing to do
Yep.
can be helpful.
Yes.
You
And I
know
think
the model of what to move towards.
you're not just trying to get your kid through school, you're trying to raise a happy, successful, living person that's an adult at some point.
Yeah.
So that homework at 7 years old, not really important, right? And just in general, I have a client right now who has a bad relationship or not a loving relationship with their child. And the first call, he said, everything is a power issue, and you have to have a battle for everything as a parent, as opposed to the choose your battles. And that was the first conversation. I thought, oh, okay, this is going to be hard for him, because what I am going to go with is actually, you need to have a good relationship before you're going to get any of the behavior that you want.
Yes.
And that's really the connection before correction. That relationship is a relationship you're going to have all your life, hopefully. So
Yeah.
put that center front with everything you do, if you can, when you can.
When I had a son that I had some extreme difficulties with, and I had to envision that I wanted him to be a friend with me when we were adults.
Mhm.
And so keeping that in mind, you don't have interactions where they're going to close down or move
Right.
away from you.
Yeah. And that's a great way to say it, actually. I love that. You do. You want that relationship. You want to be their friend when they're older. Now, other parents sometimes will take the friend thing too far, because they'll walk on eggshells because they're avoiding a meltdown at home. And that is not helpful, because if you reassure the anxiety, oh, yeah, you don't need to go to school, or you don't need to go to gymnastics, or don't do your homework,
Yeah.
that
Still,
is
you
not
have to have
helpful.
expectations, but my those were conversations my husband and I would have often is what was realistic.
Yes.
We don't wanna expect too much, but you don't wanna expect too little to either.
So that is really hard, and you have to figure that out. I think if you're dealing with ADHD, the helpful thing to remember is, okay, if my child is 8, they probably got a 4-year-old's development.
3 years.
It's usually 3 years or 30% difference.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you're right, that was wrong, that. But that helps, because if you keep that in mind when you're making your expectation, we wanna make expectations that they can reach so that they
Yes.
gain confidence and resilience. And we don't wanna take for granted that their age that they're at is the same as everybody else's age. That makes
It's more motivating for people or even children to be successful. And that gets them to want to do it again and again. So
Yes.
you need to set it up so that they're going to be successful and then urge them to the next level.
Because if they never have success, they're gonna not try. They're
Yes.
gonna give up.
And that's one thing that people with ADHD are known for is having resilience, the ability to get back up and try again. So we don't want to kill that when it's their natural way. But if they get knocked down too many times,
Yeah.
they might not get back up and they develop a feeling of helplessness.
And then they play is the wrong word, but the victim, it's everybody else's fault.
You mentioned earlier, which surprised me, that anxiety can show up as anger. How do you connect that?
So kids react to the same thing in different ways. If I were to tell someone, no, we can't go get ice cream, one kid, probably the girl, is going to push it a little bit and cry, probably.
Yeah.
The boy or the girl who is different is going to yell or be angry or
Yeah, like you
push
promised.
if they're irritable when they come home from school and they've been sitting there all day. And it could be what happened at school, but it could just be that they don't want to be told what to do anymore. And that makes them angry. It makes them upset. They want autonomy. As people, we tend to have a reaction one way or the other. You're a person that kind of closes up and gets quiet or cries, or you're a person that kind of lashes out a little bit.
And your anxiety would make you lash out?
If you don't know what you're doing, if you are scared of something so you don't want to do it,
Ah. So instead of being able to disclose that I feel uncomfortable trying to do this,
yes,
instead of being it's like you're put on the spot and you turn it around and throw it back.
that's why so many kids lie if they have ADHD. So, and anxiety and ADHD go together so often, but also they do mimic each other in some ways, like the perfectionism, the not wanting, being able to do everything, the anxiety, did I do this right? Now, there's a lot of that, even freezing. Like freezing is what people who are anxious do too at tests, but ADHD also has that.
Yes. So you get a double dose if you have both.
Yeah, sure do.
But
And
but
35% or so do have both.
oh, yes. There's a lot of overlap with a lot of different
There
conditions.
is.
So, is there a way to discern whether the anxiety is resulting from the ADHD or if it is a primary condition? Because a lot of people, adults, mistakenly got diagnosed with depression or anxiety when the real condition, the underlying condition, was ADHD. And with just getting the ADHD, the others went away. But some people, like you said, your daughter has both. So how do you discern whether it's one or both?
If they're diagnosed, if they already have ADHD. In general, that's exactly right. What you want to do is treat the ADHD first, because a lot of the time that anxiety does go away because you're anxious that you're doing everything wrong, right? They go together. And I think it is hard to know which is which. Medically, it is better, according to the experts, to give ADHD medicine, if you're talking medication, medicine first.
Right.
Now, if you've done a whole neuropsychological, and other things come up in that, then that's different. Then you're diagnosed with both. And the issue for girls is, again, they're immediately going to be, if they're diagnosed at all, on the mood spectrum, right? It's depression, it's anxiety. And that's not true of the boys. So that's also hard because sometimes they miss it.
And so I've written a paper on why ADHD is hard to diagnose. And one reason is because they're more comfortable. They think, quote, and seen anxiety more often. And so when they see it in your daughter, that might be the first thing they think of without going further to think of
Yeah,
ADHD. So I want to give a plug for the checklist we have on our website because if you complete that checklist, there's lots of areas that, in addition to anxiety, that would make you think there is ADHD here. And so I would encourage parents to not just jump to the anxiety because there's often the underlying ADHD.
that's great that you have that because it is so important. We're finally getting the word out, right? Whether it's all in medicine at all, that women are different. And people are saying, are they being overdiagnosed? And my answer would be no, but they are now being diagnosed. The girls have been, in general, boys are diagnosed at 8, and the norm, the average last year was 16 years old. It's a lot of years of struggle.
Right. And even when you get diagnosed at 16, the struggles don't stop because I've talked to women that spent years in therapy just to correct how they had experienced themselves. So you want to intervene as early as possible.
Exactly.
Dana, thank you for all your insight. Do you have any last minute words that you want to share?
I would just say when you see your child doing something that is, quote, wrong or meltdown or whatever, stop and think. What is missing? What do they need? All behavior is information. So let's try to find out what the information is before we deal with whether the behavior is good or bad, or it just is.
Uh-huh. So put everything into context.
Try and take a step back. It's hard to do as a parent in the moment, but if you can keep that mantra in your head, they're having a hard time, something's missing, this is behavior, that is information. It is not my kid trying to be bad.
Yes. There's someone who said they're not giving you a hard time, they're having a hard time.
Yes, exactly.
Thank you.
Thank you. It was fun.
Bye bye.
Bye.